In seafood, you never quite know what the net's going to bring up. Sometimes it's fish or clams. Sometimes it's a fully intact telephone. Today, we're talking with Clearwater Seafoods Director of R&D for Land-Based Operations, John Garland, who spent decades turning wild unpredictability into world-class quality. He's joining us to share stories, surprises, and science behind quality assurance in seafood processing and how modern vision inspection technology is helping processors see their catch like never before. Welcome to Quality Lines, where we explore the innovations, challenges, and ideas shaping the future of quality control in food production. I'm your host, Winston Anderson. John, thank you very much for joining us on the Quality Lines.
Thanks for having me.
So you've been in the industry for a long time. I'd like to know how you got started and what's kept you passionate about it.
Well, actually, I have a marine biology degree from Dalhousie University here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I actually grew up in a fishing family, so been on the water quite a bit and decided I wanted to take on a technical role but still be in the fishing industry. So I kind of stuck around Atlantic Canada and kept a search up for a job that suited me, and ended up with Clearwater down near my hometown in Shelburne County, and worked starting as a lobster biologist at their seafood processing plant, which held live lobsters for long-term storage. So it was just up my alley. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I buy a piece of fish, I kind of look at it like I know what I'm doing, which I don't, and then smell it. And that's really all I know about fish quality. So I'm curious how you define seafood quality, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, and I think that's a tough question. I mean, your example of smelling the fish is really good, because fish should not smell fishy. It should smell like the ocean. And except for a few circumstances where a species may have a very unique, specific smell, but the overall smell of the product should be of the ocean. And generally we look at quality, or I look at quality, depending on, I guess, what we're trying to do or who we're targeting. So for an end consumer, the basics of quality are, yes, it should smell like the ocean, it should be fresh, but it also should represent the best condition of that species that they're eating. And so there are a lot of factors that go behind that, behind the scenes, that a customer may not even know, or not even necessarily know that, if there was a quality difference between one or another. But it could change their eating experience without them even knowing or being able to put their finger on it or define it. I think specifically to something like live lobster, for instance. And generally people who buy live lobster, they do it for a special occasion, and it's for an anniversary or something, and they don't necessarily eat it on a regular basis and know it as well as they'd know chicken, for instance. And
That's right.
yeah, so when they get it, they may have an experience that, if it was something that we would consider premium quality, then there's they don't feel questioned about what they got. They realize, oh, they open up a shell and there's all this meat in it and it was tasty and juicy. Whereas if they have an experience where it looks exactly the same, the animal, but when they cooked it, it was okay. It didn't have a lot of meat in it, and water ran out of it when they opened the shell, and they thought, wow, is this what lobster is? They may not understand that, but then so it's our job in industry to kind of put the best face forward of that product in its prime condition, so that the customer gets that experience and it doesn't sort of interfere with a special occasion. So that's kind of the way I see it. And every species is a little different, but there are obviously general baseline measures that we use for determining quality. Obviously, freshness, and maintaining that freshness through the supply chain.
Nice. So, has your definition of quality changed over the years?
Yes, it has. I would say customers are becoming a lot more discerning and knowledgeable, and we're actually teaching them that. So we have to evolve our level of quality to keep up with, I guess, keeping ourselves at the top with a premium product. So how do we stand out amongst the other people who are also producing, good quality product? And so early on, it's basically quality meant that it got to the customer and it was food safe. They were not questioning whether they could eat it or not, that sort of thing. But now, obviously, quality means a lot more. Texture, freshness. How was it handled during harvest, and is it of a very tight size spec for a specific customer? So, our customer may not be an end consumer. It might be someone who is making ready meals for the end consumer, and they need a very consistent protein to go into their product that's of a very
Mm.
specific, size and shape and weight, so that they can properly manufacture it. And so it is up to us to deliver sort of that high graded product for even the middle customers.
So I feel like you just touched on some of it, but I'm kind of curious. So I've never been in a seafood processing facility. So I'm kind of curious what kind of challenges that you would face with quality control in a seafood facility.
Mm. Well, for us, we're actually vertically integrated, so we harvest all the species that we sell, and our facilities start at sea. So we have factories at sea that are harvesting product and bringing it in the I would call it the first level of processed products. So that's where we see a lot of challenges, because when we're harvesting product, it's a wild caught product. It's not farmed and consistent like you would see, say, with a herd of cattle. Obviously, I'm not in the cattle industry, but I have a feeling that they have a rough idea of what they have when they look out on the pasture, whereas we're really, kind of, we don't see what we get until the net comes up, and then we have to make an assessment about what to do with that, triage the product to understand how we're going to process it, how we're going to maintain the quality of that product through the processing line. Sometimes it's easy and it's predictable. Many times it's not, because wild caught product is extremely variable and seasonal, and there are a lot of environmental factors that can sort of hamper our ability to maintain quality. So we have to be able to control those as well. And so for us, it begins really at the boat. And so what we like to do from that point is get the product out of its shell. We deal mainly with shellfish in as quick as possible with the least amount of handling, as handling is a big problem if you overhandle shellfish or any type of seafood before you eat it, or before it's preserved through freezing. And so we get it out of the shell as quickly as possible and put it into a state we call IQF, which is individually quick frozen. And at that point, we seal in the quality. So really, for us, just getting it to that frozen state as quickly as possible is key. Then there's various things downstream from that. Once you've frozen it, we still have to assess the quality of the individual animals, and in historically that occurs through manual inspection with line inspectors, people looking at it visually to see, has there been damage to the product, is there some sort of anomaly that's occurred, parasite or something that we have to keep an eye on. And so there's a lot of inspection that it goes on in the seafood industry.
So I'm guessing. So you've been with Clearwater for 30 some years, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm assuming that quality control has probably evolved quite a bit since you started. I
Yeah.
think
Definitely has.
many industries are moving from like manual checks to automated ones.
Mm-hmm.
So why did Clearwater move to a vision inspection system?
I would say it's probably a two reasons for that. The first reason is the human eye can only see so much. And for instance, if I go back to lobsters, and I'll probably go back to lobsters quite often because
Sure.
that's my specialty.
Yeah.
That's where I cut my teeth, and I spent probably 20 years of my career with lobsters. And we were always on the quest to figure out how to determine the quality of a lobster when all of them look the same when they come out of the water. You can't tell one from another in terms of quality just by looking at it with a visual inspection, other than say if it had a damaged shell or like a missing claw. But say the meat content and the quality of the meat, which varies by season and the molt cycle, is something that you can't really determine the quality unless you cook the animal and extract the meat. So if you're selling a live animal, you don't have that opportunity. So we were even as far back as the late 1970s and early 1980s. The original biologist that was hired for Clearwater was looking at methods that we could use to determine quality of lobster without like a non-destructive method. So we weren't going to kill the animal to find out, so that we could, for instance, sample a shipment that comes in and determine what the nutritional state of that product is and whether or not it's fully meated. And so we actually developed some blood tests that we could take blood samples and look at protein levels in the blood and lactate levels for whether they've been over exercised and oxygen levels and things like that. And that gave us a good idea, a good indication of the quality of the animal from the perspective of the seasonality of it, where it is in its molt cycle. Is it in the prime part of the molt cycle where you'll get the best quality? And also, has it been handled correctly by the fishermen before it came here? So you can kind of figure those things out from the blood samples. But so when I first got hired at Clearwater, that was my job, was to take blood samples from the processing line, and we would get maybe 100 samples per shipment of 100 crates, and a crate has about 80 pounds or 90 pounds in it. So it was just a subsample. It gave you a good idea statistically of what was going on,
Mhm.
but didn't tell us exactly what was going on with every lobster. So you can see it's very time consuming to do this. It was basically a full day job of extracting blood from lobsters, and so we were always on the hunt for something that could do this, in an automated fashion. So we were looking at different types of vision technology, and back then, in say the 80s, there were limited options. We tried some cutting edge things. I would say for the 80s, we were X-raying lobsters, and we were using infrared, ultrasound. We did, even in the early 90s, we were trying out MRI technology.
My
Uh,
goodness.
yeah. So and just trying to find something that for us, we were looking. Can we see inside the shell without actually having to open up the shell and tell us what the quality looked like inside? And to be honest, we did find a few of the technologies that would work on a benchtop, but the computing power just wasn't there to be able to do it on a processing line.
Mhm.
So, we would want something that could operate at 90 pieces per second, for instance, or per minute, sorry. And, we were finding, just like medical imaging, it's a slower process. So it's evolved really with the computer technology and the speed of computers and access to faster, cheaper, smaller microchips, where we were able to revisit some of these things again and say, well, now that we have a computer that can handle vision and vision streams, can we look at some of these technologies again? And now they're starting to be implemented again in the processing world to take over, visual manual process or manual inspection.
So, how are you currently using vision-based inspection systems?
We use them in a variety of ways. For live lobster, we have some unique technologies that we're using to analyze the shell. to tell us where the lobster is in their molt process, and that's using multispectral infrared wavelengths to sort of give us some modeling to tell us where they are, and generally that's a good a sort of good measure as to whether the lobster is fully meated or not. So that's something that we've been able to put on the processing line and do on an individual lobster basis. And we're also using it in quality control with respect to, say, if scallops are going across the line, IQF scallop meats that maybe has a piece of shell on them. So we have X-ray technology that is detecting and picking out pieces of shell, or infrared technology or multispectral that's helping us pick out, say, other species that should not be in the catch that somehow got through, and we're filtering them out with multispectral imaging and ejecting those out, or even just color technology. So if there's something blue in amongst the product, we know it's probably a piece of plastic, for instance, and we want to be able to detect and remove that from a processing line.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So the when we're talking about like inline inspection systems, having the ability to identify defects like that before it makes it to packaging is obviously really great. But the vision inspection systems typically also generate like a lot of data.
Mm-hmm.
Have you dipped your toes into doing anything with the data that the vision systems generate?
Yeah, and forgive me, I'm going back to lobster again, but
No
uh,
problem.
when we put lobsters away, we would we would have a file that was a summary of a particular shipment that came in, and these lobsters would go away alive, and we would have sort of an overall score for that shipment to say it can remain in storage for 3 months or 2 months, depending on what its nutritional state was. The only problem is you had to sort of base it on the just the factors that you were able to measure in that short period of time as they're being processed. Now that we are able to get a file on every single animal that's part of that lot, it's a huge amount of data that can then be attached to the performance data of when the lobsters are stored and when they're taken out, and we can look back and say, oh, lobsters that came from this area this time of year, even though our blood protein results say that it's good for this many months storage, they have a higher risk of mortality for some other reason that is now sort of in the big data realm, where we've got some other measures that the shell and the infrared spectrum is picking up that we're not able to necessarily yet understand, but there are correlations there that we can use to help us improve on our accuracy for predicting good quality product. So yeah, it's just things like that are quite amazing, really. And we're also able to in the other fields or the other species, for instance, look at seismics and say, oh, it looks like we tend to be getting a lot more trend of smaller animals from this particular area, and we can then basically adjust our harvesting practices or our demand in certain areas so that we don't put pressure on a particular part of the resource, and or if we're targeting a specific size mix, then we have that data basically live from the machines.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
So, are there in your journey of adding vision inspection or integrating it into your processes, are there any lessons learned that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah. I mean, the 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 biggest hurdle I think we had early on is getting buy-in from the people that this system is as accurate and as fast as you're able to show. So really, it's just about there's always a an overarching sort of feeling or thought that when you run into a shipment that needs a little more work in terms of inspection. Let's say you had one that had a lot of of defects on the product that came in, then you throw more people at the line, slow it down, and it's really difficult, I think, and challenging to try and keep a consistent flow with the automated system without having to, the guys going over and thinking they have to slow that system down as well, and treat it like a human would need, extra time. And so it's really kind of teaching the mindset of automation and its consistency to the production staff. It's kind of our biggest challenge, really.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah.
We same thing happens in IT.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So on the show we have something called the rapid fire round. All right, let's do it. So fresh or frozen, which one causes more quality headaches?
Uh, I would say fresh, and that's kind of the cop out answer, because it seems obvious. Seafood has a very short shelf life,
Yeah.
but there's just inherent quality issues with particular products that go above whether it's fresh or frozen.
Okay.
Yeah, depending on how it's harvested, for instance, or the seasonality of it. So, yeah, but overall, I'd say fresh. Yeah.
Deal. What's the most unusual thing you've ever seen on the line?
Well, we harvest by, for instance, our clam operation is similar to clam digging, but out at sea. And so we're fluidizing the sand bed and then sifting through the sand to get the clams out. And sometimes you sift out other things that have dropped to the bottom. And personally, when I've been out at sea, one thing that really struck me when I was watching the line of the product coming in was a full telephone with cord and receiver on it, and it was full of barnacles and crusted with algae. And I just wonder what state a person was in. They must have been having a really angry conversation and decided that they were going to throw their phone overboard off the boat. Yeah.
That's one feature that's missing in Microsoft Teams: the ability to just throw it away.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
That's awesome.
yeah. Yeah.
What's the biggest myth about the seafood industry that you'd like to bust?
I would say that fresh is better than frozen. That is big for me. Fresh is a relative term. When you say fresh, it just means that it's not frozen. It doesn't mean that it's of better quality. In fact, a lot of fresh product has been fresh or thawed for quite a while because of the distribution chains and the challenges that go on in that. And so, it could be that a frozen product, in many cases, is of fresher and better quality than an actual fresh product. So, I'll give you an example. When we harvest scallops, and they come up and they're shucked on our vessel, they're frozen before rigor mortis even kicks in, within hours. Whereas the fresh boats bringing in scallops, a trip could be a few days before they bring them in. So you have sort of a varying level of freshness of the product that comes in. And so our frozen scallops come in very consistently, exactly the same, of super fresh, thawed out correctly using the instructions, and you have a product that is basically 3 hours old from being harvested. And it really shows in the quality. So that's my biggest, I guess, thing, is the perception that frozen is not as good as fresh. I think it's getting better.
Yeah.
You look in the frozen section now, and there's some amazing packaging with the skin packs that make the product look really good, as opposed to the traditional, snowballs that, if you look underneath, there might be a shrimp in there somewhere in some of the frozen freezers, chest freezers at the grocery store. But the packaging has really come a long way for improving that.
And a lot of the like, if we go out for sushi, a lot of the stuff that you get that's raw and like you're eating, like that has also been previously frozen, right?
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
in some cases, if I'm not mistaken, there is a necessary freezing step to kill any parasites. So,
Yeah.
and freezing technologies has come along a long way, because if you freeze correctly, Don't do a slow freeze that creates a lot of ice crystals that destroys the cells and makes it a little mushy. But do a really nice, quick frozen product. You can just seal in that freshness and quality as if it were just brought off the ocean bottom.
Nice. So,
Mm.
for our listeners, I do recommend you take a look at John's bio after this because it is fairly impressive. One of the things in there is that you used to be a fisherman,
Yes.
and perhaps you still are in your spare time. So I'm curious. So let's say you're out fishing. What would be what's the goal? It's like if you could come home with a fish to cook for dinner. Which kind of fish is it?
For me, halibut is my favorite.
Ah,
When I was growing up and going out fishing with my father, he had just a small boat. It was a 45-foot boat, but we'd still go out, out to Browns Bank off the coast of Nova Scotia, like a 12-hour jog out to the grounds, and you're out for a couple of days and then come back in. And the just the fresh fish there was all of it was amazing. But for me, halibut has that sort of that meatiness of like a steak, the same texture, but with the sort of the flaky but pure texture of like a wild caught fish. So, and there's a reason why halibut is very expensive, simply because of those qualities that it has. When we were catching halibut back then, we used to be able to get ones that were the size of a dinner table, just massive. I mean, they were beautiful big fish, and also the codfish were quite plentiful, coming down to near the end of the cod fishery, but there were still quite a few around. And I found it funny actually fishing because when it would be, say, me, my father, and one of the other mates that would be out there, and a lot of the food that people were eating as fishermen were like frozen dinners or really sort of quick meals that were highly processed food. And every once in a while, I'd have we're sitting here looking at all this fresh fish. I'm like, why don't we just have some fresh fish and just saute it? And it was a real treat. You never really think of it, but having fish while you're out on the ocean is quite a treat.
nice.
Mm.
So I have to ask you: you're at a restaurant and there's two items on the menu: fish and chips and seafood chowder. Which one are you getting?
That's a good question. Probably the seafood chowder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, same question, but except this time it's seafood chowder and crab cakes.
Crab cakes.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
if you weren't in the seafood, what do you think you'd be doing?
Ooh, that's a good question. I believe I would probably still be in the food industry simply because I have just a real interest in food in general, and I would probably still be in the technology side, in manufacturing or processing, simply because that's the space that I like to play in, and there are continuous challenges every day, from a technical perspective to say improve on quality or improve on throughput without losing quality and those sort of things that really kind of get me excited. So I'm quite certain I'd still be in the food industry in some sort of fashion.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
Mm.
Well, I think that's all we have for today, John.
Awesome.
I really thank you for coming on. You've been fantastic. I feel like uh, I have a lot of lobster questions on my mind that I'll ask you afterwards. But
Sure. No problem. Yeah.
it
Well, I
sounds
mean,
like you're the guy.
yeah. Well, when I first started at Clearwater, actually, we would do something for our customers because they really didn't have sort of a baseline standard of knowledge that we were accumulating through all the work that we were doing in R&D. So we came up with this thing called Lobster University. And we do it for all of our clients. Anyone who touches lobster, it could be the fisherman, could be the person driving the truck, or it could be the cargo, the air freight cargo guys. We've been to UPS and FedEx and our end consumers and in restaurants just to teach them about lobster, what we go through to get a quality product to their table, and also just some fun facts about lobsters. And people get such a kick out of it. That program's been running for a long, long time. It's been very successful.
At the end, you get a certificate.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Right now, I've got a map of my hometown back there. But if I could hang a certificate saying I graduated from Lobster University, I'm all in.
Yeah, we'll have to work on that.
Perfect. Very good. Well, thanks again, John, for joining us. It's been a
No
treat.
problem, Winston.
And once again, I'm Winston Anderson. And whether you're inspecting, testing, or just digesting, thank you for joining me on the Quality Lines. Thank you very much. Farewell.